Good day, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. So, welcome again to the APSI Strategic Lens discussion. So, we'll be discussing something that quite rarely crops up in our discussions, but it's a major issue nevertheless. It's about migration. So, the theme for this discussion would be yes, migration as a tool of hybrid warfare and strategic coercion, with a particular focus on Europe in general. So, I'd like to open this up with a first question. So, yep, the Russia-Ukraine war and the Israel-Palestine conflict have generated different responses from EU states regarding refugee admission and protection. So, what are the differences, and what do they reveal about Europe's strategic priorities? So, let's cut it in two. Let's start first from the Russia-Ukraine war, then Israel-Palestine conflict from Eastern Europe and Mediterranean perspective. So let's begin with Eastern Europe. Sir Kurumbashev, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your invitation to have such discussion, especially speaking about migration. I think that you probably choose representatives from right countries because both Italy and Bulgaria are obviously one of the first stops of the migration wave. Because nobody is migrating from the north, nobody is migrating from the west, so everybody are coming from the east and from south. Speaking especially about the last war, I can say that it is a very long process because Americans created a lot of wars in the region, starting, I can say, probably from Iraq and 25 years ago. So all that time when you have some events in Syria, in Iraq, and of course, all the time tensions which you have at the West Bank and Gaza, you have wars in the region more than 25 years, speaking exactly about that period and creating a great migration wave, which is going to Turkey, after that to Greece and to Bulgaria. Of course, we can add here Libya and most of the people coming probably directly to Italy. So I cannot say that that conflict is something new for the region, and it is creating the first wave or something. Even I cannot say that there is a specific wave from that war. But it is a long-term problem, which is, so we have two types of migration, which is, we can say more or less Middle East, but part of the migration is Middle East, but you can go further, let's say in direction, let's say of Afghanistan, Pakistan, that direction. And you can go further in Africa, because it is not only the conflict which we had in Libya, but you have some problems and some migration and some people which are migrating in Europe from whole Africa. So it is not just Northern Africa. Northern Africa is just the most visible question. That's why I saw that my colleague, he was in the European Parliament 10 years before me, but all the time there were specific discussions, as there is some kind of agreement that the migrants must stay in the first country in which they enter European Union, and obviously that affects Eastern countries and Southern countries, because obviously those are the first countries which are reached just by geographical reasons, not by the migration reasons. And that's why always I can say that probably the Eastern countries in the European Union and the Southern countries in the European Union, I can say this about Spain, Italy, and Greece, have different opinion than the Western countries, the classical Western or the classical Northern countries. As I can say, we were first at the front line. So I cannot say that they are the migrants were used specifically as some hybrid danger for the region. It is just they are just consequence of the wars which were created around us, specifically in Northern Africa and the Middle East, and of course they're consequence of economic migration for countries like Pakistan or Afghanistan or even Sri Lanka, I can say, and of course all the African countries which are just fighting for their better life, and that is the major reason for their migration. So it is not a local war which was created by somebody, but it is just by the economic reasons. And I think that European countries, specifically the members of the European Union, a long time were trying to find a modus what can work for the European Union and not everything to fall to the southern countries as a responsibility. But we say in our country that the people who ate didn't trust to the people who are hungry. And that was the reason why there were a lot of discussions between Eastern and Western countries, between the Southern and Northern countries in the European Union. And still, I cannot say that we found a sustainable solution for the Union. So probably that is enough for entry of our conversation.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to
Thank you, sir. Moving on to
Tolly's perspective, from a Mediterranean perspective. Mr.
Okay.
Kurumbachev, yes, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you. The Palestinian and Ukrainian conflicts have created new migratory pressures, but really mostly from Ukrainian, and particularly in the initial stage of the war. After not a lot. Gaza hasn't been a major migration problem. Much more people in Italy came from Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and perhaps even China, which no one ever talks about and no one seems to measure, but there are quite a lot. Sea borders and what happens in the Mediterranean make the news often, no? But who cross by land with the expectation of new life is more from the east border of Italy than from the sea. The Mediterranean area is full of conflicts and wars, quite everywhere. But not from all the countries that they have problems, came people. For example, Morocco. Morocco has the problem with the Sahrawi, but we don't have Sahrawi people coming in Italy. We have Moroccans people coming in Italy from economical reason. All the people, the most important migration that Italy has is for economical reasons, not for conflict reasons. And then it's a problem that needs a lot of consideration to do. I mean, social and also human consideration, and also what the opportunities and what they are the requests of the Western society, no, has on migration. It's not true that all the people comes only because we offer good opportunities. It's not true, in my opinion. Also, this a lot of people comes because they they open um, new and better life, of course. But a lot of people comes also to cross Italy and go in other countries like France, like Germany, like North Europe, and so. Then in Italy, we are a country that has the problems to be border of Europe's, the southern softener borders of Europe. That's our problem. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you, sir. So, if I can relate to this, I studied in Russia, and I had a lot of Central Asian and Central Asian friends, Tajikistan, Afghanistan, and to uh, connect your both of your views, there's no stopping desperate people from wanting a better life, but then they're trapped in circumstances larger than their control, perhaps war, perhaps economic hardships. But anyway, moving on. So, yeah, several European governments, particularly Poland, have argued that Russia and Belarus have facilitated or exploited irregular migration flows toward EU's eastern border as a form of hybrid pressure. I've seen this in the news. It's like a human table tennis, so to speak. Afghans, Central Asians, and as if we may ask, to what extent do you assess that this migration is being weaponized, and what lessons can be drawn from this experience? And this is mainly for Eastern Europe, but let's also cover the Mediterranean perspective. Is Mediterranean migration being weaponized to some extent? Let's start from the Eastern front. Over to you, sir.
First, it is interesting to comment the experience, especially of two Central European countries, which have very strong opposition against the migration. They were keeping those positions. Those two countries are Hungary of Orban, and Poland. And by the way, you can, if you make a, let's say, map of migration in Europe, probably you will see that migration or migrants in those countries are close to 0%. So zero tolerance to migration. And by the way, I consider that for interesting experience, as they didn't allow. I saw. I'm very often crossing the border between Serbia and Hungary, so Hungarians made a really very strong border there. Poland doesn't matter what kind of government you have. They are keeping that position already with two different type of governments, and that is interesting. About the weaponizing of migration, which is a little bit dangerous expression, but we have conversations, a lot of conversations with Turkey. They have, I think, only from Syria between 3 to 5 million migrants. For us, it was interesting their experience because a lot of people with good education were coming from Syria. And the first check was done by the Turkish. And by the way, they were inviting some of the Syrians, which are with good education, to live in their country. And they were allowing, if we can say so, if you can control the whole process, the people which have less education or the people which from Islam point of view are not very well accepted in Turkey to go out from Turkey. So we have a long conversations with Turkish as our neighbors. I can try to say as our friends to try to understand our situation. By the way, it is the same situation in Bulgaria as Mr. Romagnoli says for Italy. They're looking for Bulgaria not only as an entry point. I don't think that a lot of people are remaining here. If we have some migration, it is from, I can say, more than 50 years ago when we have a lot of students from Middle East and they stay here. But most of the people are looking, just entering Bulgaria and after that using it as a transit point going further. Even now, Bulgaria from 2 years is already member of the Schengen Agreement, so freely they can go through Romania and Hungary further in the European Union. But from time to time, one of the problems was, I think, let's say, the people which don't have a good education, good knowledge of language, some extremist form of Islam, which, as already Moroccans were mentioned, not exactly Moroccans in Italy or in Spain. By the way, in Spain there are much more, but let's say you have interesting Moroccan districts in Brussels, in Belgium. So I think that it was difficult to work with these people. Even they were not very well accepted in their societies, but they already come in the European societies where the gap is even much bigger. I don't think that such people was infiltrated on purpose, but I think that just they want to spread their ideas. I don't think it is a state policy that, let's say, somebody is sending such people specifically, let's say, from Saudi Arabia, some, let's say, appearances of Wahhabism and some other branches of Islam. But if they are not well accepted even in their societies, they are looking for another societies when they can spread their ideas. So it is a longer discussions, and I think it is more that is the field of security services, whether somebody is sending them by their state policy. But anyway, that happens, and I don't know whether somebody is using that weapon on purpose, but it happens.
About migration being weaponized. It says it's a larger problem than that. But from your perspective in the Mediterranean, how do you view it? Is migration being weaponized in the Mediterranean? Who's doing it, by the way? Your call, sir. Sir, your audio is out, sir.
Yeah, sometimes happens from Libya, for example, happens for maybe also government. There in Libya, as you know, there are two governments now in the east, in the west. One fights each other also in the international relationship. No, sometimes one push people to pass and go for the Mediterranean Sea. Sometimes it does the same the other side of Libyan governments, and sometimes they depends how the relationship with the Italian government is going on, no? And then there is a problem, but what I'd like to underline is the attractiveness in migration that Italy represents, because we can summarize as a country that has a well-being. Is a country of human and supportive reception, easy reception. The legislation and prison regimes are quite good. Compare with the kind of system that they want to live, that they live. Employment opportunities also we have. Honestly, we give employment opportunities that they can easily cash, particularly when we are talking about black work, no? in agriculture, for example, but not only. Anyway, we have also, we have to be honest when we discuss about, we have also needs of some some kind of works like I don't know who care over the ancient of all the relatives, no, for example, or who is making work like homekeeper that we have a lot of requests, and of course the fact that we have a bridge for traveling in other countries, then there is a demographic depression in Italy, no, for young people. That means that we have a lot of opportunities for some works, and that's are all there are many reasons to be attractive for migration, and this is particularly in Italy, but it's not only in Italy. And also we have to consider that all the people that is now in Italy and went 25 years ago, 30 years ago, when in the 19th of the last century starts the migration. Honestly, no, this a phenomenon that in Italy we didn't know until the beginning of 90 about. And the people that arrived in the first period were different. They came, for example, from Polonia, from Albanian. Then they were European people anyway, with the culture and the religion and social perception similar to the Italian one, no? And it was easy, and they went to mm, to get jobs in some particular area, like I don't know, in mediation assistance, for example, or housekeeping or something like. After the migration flows in these 30 years, they change. They change the direction. They change the country from where they came. They change the reason, and honestly, also the Italian way to offer opportunities to these people may be changed. Then it's quite complex problem to describe not in my language and without showing you database about. But I know that if you have time to look at the statistical data, you can have a confirm of what I told you. And also, if you have the opportunity to talk with the people that came in Italy and to have time to compare what the reason they say, how much friends or relatives they already have in Italy, from how long, and what are their expectations. Then you can build a frame, a complete frame of what is now no more a problem of people coming and stay for short time, for 10 years, 5 years, but people that now they consider to build a new life for them and their son, maybe in the future in Europe, in our country, in Europe anyway, because they left something, they left their countries, they don't feel to go back. To go back again, but also this one is it's a perspectives that are different between China, between Sri Lankan, African. No, there's something. Honestly, it's a big problem that we should discuss for many times, and we cannot be easy and enough to discuss just today. But anyway, an important field that we should start to discuss about. Also discussing about the solution, because the solution are many, and maybe not only it's not only easy to close the door. Maybe we have to find a way to don't close the door, but to be safety anyway at your home, also if you don't close the door. That's maybe the main problem. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the comprehensive response. I'd like to give a follow-up question. Migration presents a strain on the EU on multiple fronts. So I'd like to ask, what are the main stress points that migration pushes on the EU in terms of institutional cohesion? I would say that's the biggest sticking point. And I would like to add that institutional cohesion is quite important to the EU, especially in these trying times. And I've also seen far-right parties, various far-right parties in Europe, use this phenomenon to somehow justify their positions, gain public support, and when they get in power, they sometimes enact policies that are, let's say, detrimental to the larger interest of EU. So what's your take about that? What are the main stress points that migration gives to the EU in terms of promoting its cohesion as an organization? The main stress points that migration poses to the EU.
Yes, just to say that we have a double position as Bulgarians in European Union, because on one side we became already attractive country for the migrants. On the other side, inside the European Union, Bulgarians are one of the greatest migrants, because Bulgaria is one of the countries with the lowest standard of living, already adjusting very fast. I think we were 35% from the average level of the European Union 25 years ago. Now we're close to 70%. So even we have the opposite process. For example, that was the first year when more Bulgarians came from Germany back in Bulgaria than immigrate from Bulgaria to Germany. The stress points which you are asking for, I think that my colleague Romagnoli, he already points one very important issue. It is how those migrants are fitting to the society, whether they want to fit, whether they want to learn the local language, whether they want really to work, to educate themselves, or they just want to benefit from the very beneficial social systems of Europe. And that became a serious issue, especially in, I can say, in Western countries. So sometimes if they want to contribute to the society, they are welcome, but sometimes they don't want to contribute in the society. You can see specific districts which are looking like their own countries, which they are making these districts in some cities. I can say specific examples, especially in Germany for that. The other is that in the beginning, there was a mistake that they were understanding this social system, which was just done for somebody who is coming and he needs help in first 6 months or in his first year. That can be a lifetime. I can say that example, especially for Ukrainians, because, okay, first year you're running from the war, you must be supported, that's okay. But if you think that you can stay in the country and let's say the Germans or the Polish will work and you will get the money from the social system and you will get a status of refugee for your life, it is a comfortable position, but it is one to have a support, but for a certain period, but to stay, let's say, till, let's say, lifetime in that position is not possible. or that somebody is obliged to you during till the end of your life. I think that there is a significant shift in the European Union policy from the times when famous German Chancellor Angela Merkel invited migrants to come more and more. I think it was 2014, 2015. And now there is a serious response in different societies. Mm, and the appearance of those right-wing parties is a reply of society which must be understood. For example, I was representing the party of the European Socialists, but I understand that reply in a lot of countries. In Italy, I think one of the most popular parties was, I think, Lega Nord. From Germany, you have Alternative for Germany or Alternative für Deutschland. In France, you have even, I think, one very strong candidate now who will be, I think, in top two after Macron is stepping out from the party of Le Pen. And even I think that was one of the serious reasons for Brexit, because even UK, which they, as a British Empire, they have a strong migration history and culture. And you can say that London is one of the most multicultural cities in the world, definitely. On the other side, British didn't accept the fact that somebody is controlling their inner migration policy in the European Union, and all the people from the rest 27, 28 countries from the European Union can go and work free in their country just being EU citizens. And that was one of their major arguments. There were a lot of another arguments why they wanted to step out from the European Union. So I think that that sign which is coming from these parties, right parties, which I mentioned in those countries, you have, of course, much more. It must be here heard very clearly, must be understood. On the other side, I think it is interesting that story that you're losing some people. I can give example with our country. When the changes started in 1990, we have 9 million people. Now we have 6.5. So we lost 30% of our population migrating to Western Europe. On the other side, let me give you an example with the football teams. If you're selling players, you must buy players. Otherwise, you will be without players. So now we are starting to make this. And we have, let's say, a serious wave of migrants. Now, I can say probably the major countries now are, again, like Sri Lanka, or Uzbekistan is very popular now, Nepal. And it is not just black and white. You cannot be in ideal situation. So I think it is a little bit difficult, as even in our country, there is evaluations that you have two types of migrants, which are easy to adjust to our culture. As my colleague said, for Albanians and Polish for Italy, I can say this for Macedonians or Ukrainians for Bulgaria, because they are closer to us as speaking, let's say, Slavic language, Orthodox, and so on. So for them, it's easier to adjust, and for Bulgarians, it's easier to accept them. On the other side, you cannot say that, and to make classifications, it is not fair, and it is really not a good manner to say that you have first rank of migrants and second rank of migrants. Everybody must have their chances and to be evaluated by their merits, how they contribute to the society. So I think that is the most important issue.
Thank you, sir. So moving on, I'd like to. This is for Ms. Sir. I please unmute your phone. Uh, Lisa, unmute your phone, sir. The audio is off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
For
you.
you,
So,
for you, sir, I'd like to ask, given all that we have talked about, this increasing migration flows, debatable weaponization of migration, the implications of migration to EU internal political sphere. How should EU integrate migration policy into its broader security, foreign policy, and even its resilience strategy, sir? Over to you.
uh, the policies of different parties, for example, in Italy, maybe more than in other countries like French, where Front National, Mr. Le Pen, particularly the father, I mean, but also now also Marine, they have a regular way to see the problem and to give solution to this. Doesn't happen the same in Italy. No, my colleagues before talk about Lega, but Lega has a different way to say something to the people, asking for the votes and making something when they are at the government, no? And often in Italy, different parties from left to right often are contradictory, often also demagogic. Saying my party will always be against migration is a simple and hypocritical way of responding to the problem, and is something that it's a message that they send to the people when there are the elections, but after they don't do honestly something useful to play the right role in the question. In my opinion, the Italian party, particularly, they should be clear to have clear. Sorry for repeat the same words. A collaborative relationship with the countries of origin or transit, and Italian governments, but also we can say for the European governments, because if not enough to mitigate, at least to regulate the phenomenon. For example, having briefly mentioned the reason to be attractive for these people, I think that we should develop a new conviction, no, that this kind of a problem can be not they can't be they can't be solved in the medium or in the long term, maybe, but not now. But we can solve only correcting many factors of the attractiveness that we said. And also, we should translate the easy slogan, let helps them at home, as often we listen, into measures that are useful for satisfying the needs of demographically depressed nations. For example, increasing legal immigration before always combat illegal immigration, of course, but making training and social and cultural integration schools in the country of the origin before the people has to come in your country. No? For example, if you need housekeeping for in your country, okay, you can start with have special school in Tunisia, Casablanca, in Benghazi, in Cairo, where you can ask to the people that they want comes in Italy first to have at least some cultural and professional training, no, before asking to come. And that's when you have a control of this kind of migration, you can also think about or talk about integration, cultural integration. That you can. Otherwise, we will be in front of the same problems always. People coming without any idea of what they will do and how they can solve their problems, and without any respect for the problems and the people that living in our old country already has. No? Then that's the problem. Then it's a kind of problem that traditional society, European traditional society, didn't solve from when starts the globalization. No? It's the most important worst side of globalization that has a high social impact on the people, more than what economical globalization had, in my opinion. And no parties in Italy have a right and straight way to solve this problem.
Thank you, sir. So
Thank you.
moving on, if we view migration from a security perspective, so how should the EU address this? So if migration poses various security risks, one, it can be exploited by state actors. There are terrorism concerns, social cohesion concerns as well. How should the EU address this? So over to you. Looking at all the security challenges that migration brings, how should the EU view it? As a humanitarian issue, border management, or we can invoke collective security?
I heard about million discussions I was following million discussions in the European Parliament about that. So all the time, oh, we must give more money for our borders, or we must send more people back to their home. But as my colleague says, when it is coming to action, and you must do that, it is not happening. It is a huge discussion which I wanted to point. It's whether the migrants must have their political rights. For example, if you follow the policies which have in the Gulf, let's say countries like Oman, Emirates, Qatar, half of their population, in some cases, in other countries, even more than half of their population are migrants, but they cannot get citizenship even if they stay in their country for 30 years or for 20 years. So that is interesting solution. Let's say it is a Gulf solution. So allow them to work, never allow them to vote. In Germany, you have different case. They are not allowing to have so-called ethnic parties, but on the other side, you already have members of the Bundestag, which are from Turkish origin, and it is absolutely normal if you have 10 million Turkish already in the country from 80 million, and they're not politically represented in the local councils and already at the national level. Obviously, there will be some tensions for that lack of representing. Typically, the left-wing parties in Europe were trying to represent the migrants. Probably the most visible example is in London, when you have Sadiq Khan as a mayor. By the way, successful mayor, as he is a long-term mayor. And it is interesting how you have in very royal London, let's say, mayor with Pakistani origin. So one of the issues how you can handle the situation is whether to involve these people in the uh, politics in the national level and especially at the local level. You have a lot of um, already interesting inclusions. For example, if we take United States, which is generally country of migrants, that is how they were created. Donald Trump election was real sign for anti-migration policy. After that, there was a strong voice from the other side choosing Zoran Mamdani as a mayor of New York. So you see two reactions of the society in two directions, giving two different sides. One at national level, the other at federal level, we can say in United States, and the other at the most, let's say, at the biggest city in, or the most influential city in United States, having NYC. So I think it is very important issue how to create dialogue in the society and trying to understand each other instead of creating some poisonous atmosphere in the society. By the way, it is very interesting for me how will go on the party of Mr. Nigel Farage in UK, because speaking on this anti-migration level, he's trying now to broke the very old two-party system which was working in UK between conservatives and labours. Yes, you have some liberals there, but they were not so much influential party. But there was a lot of questions already whether he can be the next uh, British Prime Minister, defeating first Conservatives and after that the Labours, which now they have significant majority. And I don't know how that experiment at national level will finish. By the way, he was not very successful at national level, and he was always number one with his party for the elections for the European Parliament. So I think that the major point is how they're represented at the political level, and whether that level, especially at local level, at the level of the municipalities of districts, whether that is working. I think that is the way how the politics is working generally, not between migrants and the local people, but that is, you have different people, left wing, right wing, with a different understanding, well, let's say with more center point of view. And the only, let's say, level at which the people can understand each other at the end of the day is the politics, how they are represented, and what kind of majority is chosen to represent these politics for a certain period of time, or what kind of corrections must be done, sometimes even with snap elections, in order to have correction of what the people are not happy in the current situation. The question is that the people are becoming more and more unhappy with the current situation. Even the British were impressed when the next prime minister came just recently, Andy Burnham, and they said, oh, we have for 10 years 7 prime ministers, which looks too much. But I think it is a modern illness of the society. For example, in the last 5 years in our country, we have 8 times snap elections, which is probably not the best model for management of the country.
Thank you, sir. It's a nice point. I'd like to say addressing the security challenges posed by migration could be done by political representation, dialogue, and understanding instead of creating divisive politics, even the host countries, as I understand this. So, moving on, I'd like to ask to Sir Romagnoli, what indicators should European governments monitor to distinguish between spontaneous, legitimate migration and migration that can be facilitated or exploited by hostile actors like hostile states, terrorist movements, or radical parties within the country? How do you distinguish between these migration, and what are the signs that you monitor for this? Over to you, sir. Sir, your audio is out.
Okay. Oh, so it's very difficult to answer to this question because it's not easy and not possible often to have information about the people that arrives. In Italy, particularly, when we have people coming from the sea, that is the border most checked, we can say. We have a lot of people that comes without any documents. Often, our policemen, they don't know from which country are. They don't know how they arrive on the boat, and it's honestly very difficult. We should improve. Probably we should improve the technologies, and we should have specialized personnel to combat illegal migration. Otherwise, you never know exactly if is a poor guy coming just because he needs works, sometimes happens, or if is somebody sent by somebody else, or anyway he wants come to make something criminal or terrorism or something like that. You never know. As you can see on newspaper quite every day, what's happened. It's true that sometimes also people living for many years, maybe born in Europe, make a choice, a radicalization. No? For example, for the Islamic, the ISIS problem that we have, or something like this. No? Then you are not anyway sure when the culture and the religion is so different, what can happens in the human mind, no? Also. But anyway, we should improve our security system, because if you don't have the right idea of who is the people coming, you have only two opportunities: close the door, don't come because I don't know who you are, or as we do actually, that we keep the door open to everybody. That is a crazy way to govern to the problem. No, if you think as Italian, I have to say something. No, that we are people being migrants for decades. The problem is that we went to fill empty space, like Italians made in the United States, in Australia, in other countries. Anyway, when they went in the United States, they had not the same. It was not so easy to enter, no, like it's easy now, because the means of transport were different, because the war check borders very well organized in the States, and the same was in Australia. Now we have to consider how easy is to take a boat and cross any border, take a car and cross any border. It's a little bit more difficult by plane, of course, we know, but the other way to enter in a country, honestly, is really really easy to as everybody can see. Then we need specialized personal and technologies to have more information about people moving around your border, people moving from other country. But what we need, particularly in Italy, is also a different way in the relation between justice systems and the legislative system. Because if the justice system is not able to collaborating with the decision of the legislative system, as in Italy happens often, that you will not solve the problem. Also, if you stop people and you say no, you can't enter, you can stay, or it's time to you have to go because if you have this this problem with the justice with the justice system, you are honestly in a big trouble, as the Italian facts can easily show. Then this is also a problem when we discuss about European Union, because we have an European Union that makes policy on this on this problem, honestly, without any real sense of what the problem is for some countries more than from others. No, of course, the problem for Poland or for Swedish or for Norwegian may be different, but for some country it's a big problem. What they have done, what the European Union has done in Belgium, for example, you can have an idea of how now the Belgian society, particularly in a big town like Brussels, became something real different. Brussels doesn't look as an European town now. It looks like a town of melting pot people, but not with a good way to live, but with a lot of problem, for what I know, more than what we can read on a newspaper or listen on television. But if you go in Brussels, you go round, you can have a good idea that European Parliament, European institutions are in a fort, we can say, no, like fort where they are surrounding by people that they want something really different. They have an idea really different and also dangerous of what Europe can be, what Europe can become. They are surrounding, but they don't know, maybe, or they once say. They won't look. It's not like this. But if you go and you see, you can have a correct idea of this. Thank you. Sorry for my English. This is quite difficult for me to translate.
Understood, sir.
No, what I think in Italian.
Understood, sir.
Totally.
It's okay.
Okay. Thank you.
So, yep, in the interest of time, so we have to wrap this up. It's been, we've used up quite an hour for our meeting. Though I'd like to thank our speakers. Mr. Kurumbashev, thank you for being here once again. And thank you to Mr. Romagnoli for being here too.
Thank you.
And all I'd like to add as a comment is that human beings are a migratory species. We've always moved places since the beginning of time. However, as our times change, but moving in search of a better life, more opportunities, fleeing from hardship will always be part of the human story. And it's up to us how to address this through our institutions, through our policies, laws, and even our own values. It's always going to be a challenge. Integration, especially, key theme that has been opened up here, and security. Security. Migrants can be exploited for state conflicts, terroristic conflicts. And what I'd like to add to is that migrants shape the politics of their host countries. And in the end, it's just my personal belief, migrants shaping the politics of their home countries could inevitably shift the balance of power or privilege in those countries. Maybe old privileged groups might fall out of place. Maybe some privileged groups may rise to the top. It will definitely make the waters stormier. So with that, I thank everyone for being here. Please, thank you. Please attend our next conferences covering such topics. So with that, I wish you all a wonderful day. Thank you very much to everyone.